There are a lot of qualities that make the world of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul feel unique, but one that really stands out is attention to detail. In moments where most shows would skip ahead or cut to the next scene, these shows instead stay put and soak in the details. In this video, we'll look at a few examples of this in Better Call Saul and talk about why it works so well, why it's important, and how it helps make it a great show. A great example of Better Call Saul's attention to detail can be seen in Season 3, Episode 1, Mabel. This takes place after Mike nearly assassinates Hector, only to find a note left on his windshield saying, "Don't." Eventually, we learn this was left by Gus, but at the time, Mike had no idea who was tracking him. So, he tries to find the tracking device located somewhere in or on his car. He does this by systematically and painstakingly disassembling it to check every possible crevice of the vehicle. And we are with him every step of the way. We see him drive into 5J's Auto Parts, we see him forklift the car up so he can get under it, we see him pay the guy helping him out, and we see him poke, prod, and take the car apart piece by piece. This goes on for about 15 minutes, and I don't find a second of it boring, something I doubt many shows can pull off. So what's the point of this scene? Why can't we just spend a couple of minutes on this with a brief montage and skip ahead to the part where Mike finds the tracker? This is an easier question to answer for scenes that are more suspenseful. For example, toward the end of Season 5, Lalo pays Kim and Jimmy a visit. We spend the next 10 minutes watching Lalo question them, having Jimmy repeat his story about what happened in the desert over and over. This scene takes its time because the writers want to draw out every bit of suspense they can, and it works. I was on the edge of my seat with sweaty palms this entire scene waiting to see what Lalo would do. But what about the scene of Mike disassembling a car? Or we can go further back to Season 1, Episode 8, Rico. A good 15 minutes of this episode deals with Jimmy dumpster diving behind an assisted living facility, digging out shredded papers, and working with Chuck to reconstruct the original documents. And it's not just about the amount of time dedicated to it, but also the fun little details, like Jimmy digging out a piece of cardboard here to ventilate the dumpster since it smells so bad. There is some suspense in these scenes, as there are always lingering questions involved. Where will Mike find the tracker? What will Jimmy find in the dumpster? But it's suspense on a much smaller scale than the Lalo scene, as in, the characters' lives are not in immediate danger. There are countless examples where we see how this show loves to explore process. Jimmy and Kim don't just forge a letter-writing campaign on Huell's behalf, we see them buy the supplies, and we see the attention to detail Jimmy puts into making the letters seem genuine. Nacho doesn't just switch out Hector's meds, but we see him buy the fake pills, and practice dropping them in his coat pocket. What other show would feature a character practicing the maneuver of dropping a pill case into a coat pocket over and over? From these examples, we can see that the writers love to answer the question of how. Whenever something gets done, as long as it's not immediately obvious, they will dedicate some time to showing how it got done. Just look at Season 4. An entire arc was dedicated to the construction of Gus's underground cooking facility, and by the end, it wasn't even done. I think the fans would have been totally fine without Better Call Saul telling us how the lab was built. But when you think about how impressive a construction it is, you can easily see the massive logistical challenges involved. And that is too tempting for Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould, and the other writers to stay away from. They love solving these sorts of process challenges, like MacGyver on a grander scale. So they chose to focus on it, and exploited it for some great emotional storytelling. The running theme through all this is that Better Call Saul will not cheat its way out of any situation. When a character faces a logistical challenge, or even just a tedious one, there's no skipping ahead or hitting fast forward. We live with them every step of the way, and this has a few positive effects on the show. On a surface level, it's just fun. Most shows breeze past these details, so there's a novelty to exploring them and a certain thrill to seeing something you don't normally get to see. Even the little things. For example, how often have we seen a villain follow a character with a tracking device? Have you ever wondered what the tracking device actually looks like? or how the scanner works that actually reports the tracker's location, or how long the battery lasts and what happens when it runs out. On Better Call Saul, we not only answer all of these questions, but also spend a few minutes watching Mike obtain the tracker and receiver. None of these details are kept from us. There's also just something satisfying about watching competent characters exploit their expertise to do something we ourselves would not normally do. To prove it, just look at the fact that the Primitive Technology YouTube channel has over 10 million subscribers. Millions of people tune in to watch someone meticulously build things with no voiceover or music. Similarly, it's satisfying to watch Mike fix a window, sneak evidence to a police officer, or jam up a toll machine with gum. And oftentimes, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul don't just leave it at that. They will sometimes use these scenes to have fun with the cinematography and editing. Just look at the cooking scenes in Breaking Bad, or even the Jimmy doctoring Chuck's documents scene from Better Call Saul. Beyond the visceral fun and satisfaction we derive from these scenes, they also accomplish a couple of other important things. 1. They keep us with the characters. Storytelling works best when we as viewers feel some portion of what the characters feel. When they feel sad, so should we. And when they feel anxious and stressed, we should also feel a little anxious and stressed. The more a show can align our feelings with the characters, the better the story works. And forcing us to live through their experiences with them does exactly that. When HHM takes the sandpiper case away from Jimmy, he becomes extremely frustrated. So much so, Better Call Saul dropped one of its patented once-a-season F-bombs in this scene.
I'm gonna tell every one of those clients what a lying, miserable pig.
In that moment, as viewers, we also felt frustrated on Jimmy's behalf because we were with him the entire way. If we hadn't spent a few minutes in the dumpster with him, watching him suffer to find those paper scraps, the frustration would not have landed nearly as well as it did. I'll repeat here the same mantra I've used in so many other videos. Show, don't tell. A lesser show would have told us that Jimmy worked really hard, with maybe a few brief scenes and some dialogue where Jimmy complains about how hard he's working. But on Better Call Saul, we are firmly planted with the characters, even in lengthy scenes without dialogue. We live with them, and ultimately, that allows us to feel a little bit of what they feel, which makes for some masterful storytelling. The other thing these scenes accomplish is that they add a sense of realism to the show, which lets them ramp up the suspense and impact of scenes. Think about all the times you watch a movie or show, and a character gets out of a difficult situation thanks to coincidence, getting lucky, or things just working out in a totally unrealistic way. You get that, oh come on feeling, and the reality of the story breaks a little, as does your investment in it. Better Call Saul goes the other way. Not only does it never cheat its way out of any situation, but it actively builds up a sense of reality by focusing on the details. Each of these scenes where we go through a process with the characters closer connects us with them and further enforces the reality of the world they live in. So, when you get to a scene like the one where Lalo visits Jimmy and Kim, or where Nacho has to swap Hector's medicine without getting caught, the suspense is all the more palpable, like you're watching real people in real danger. Further, in those tense scenes, there is no safety net. There is no part of you that waits for a deus ex machina or someone else to come to the rescue at the last second. By the time you reach the life or death situations these shows throw at you, you've been trained to expect the story to dwell on detail and process. If our characters are going to get out of the situation alive, you will see how, every step of the way. Knowing there's no skip or fast forward button when it comes to Better Call Saul means there's a little claustrophobia that comes with these scenes. You feel the tension, coupled with the sense that you can't escape this moment. You'll have to see it through to the end, step by step, just like the characters. You are just as trapped as they are. In both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, I have felt levels of suspense few movies or shows can compete with. And it's largely thanks to patience, both from the writers who take their time to focus on details, and the audience willing to watch. I have a lot of friends that started watching Better Call Saul, but stopped somewhere during the first season, and I don't find that all that surprising. Its approach is definitely a double-edged sword in that it does require patience from viewers, But for those willing to put in that patience, it certainly pays off. Better Call Saul is easily one of my favorite shows of all time, and when I think about why, I try to parse out what makes the show unique. And I think its ability to take its time and focus on the right details without being boring is just one of the many ways it differentiates itself. Anyway, as we approach the final season of Better Call Saul, I'll certainly have a lot more to say about it. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to keep up. And of course, make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of Better Call Saul. Do you agree that its approach to detail works, or do you ever find yourself getting bored with the show? And if there are any other Better Call Saul videos you'd like to see, feel free to let me know in the comments. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.